If you really just commit to changing your lifestyle and being willing to try everything and not giving up and not taking no for an answer, you will figure it out.
Today we're going to dive into panic attacks and anxiety. And what's cool about this for people to understand is me and you have both dealt with a lot of panic attacks and anxiety. And you actually dealt with it pretty bad when I first was meeting you, and then it like swapped, and then I was dealing with it really bad to the point where you saw me like crying and you're like, you're gonna be fine. And it was like a dark place of my life. And so a big thing that I realized when I was going through that is like I was searching the internet trying to find things about anxiety and panic attacks, and there is information on it, but not enough that actually like really works, like tools and tricks and like advice that like actually like helped me. I was like, it felt like you were very helpless in it. So I want to go into like, how did you first realize you had panic and anxiety? Like, when was the first time you really remembered that you like got a panic attack or anxiety? And what was that like for you?
I think for me, it was like crowds or areas where I felt like I couldn't escape. Like my first panic attack ever was my childhood best friend. She would always go to these music festivals growing up from the time she was like 15 to like on. And I never went because it didn't sound appealing to me. I was just like, I don't do that type of stuff. And so this one year I went with her, and it was in the South. What was that festival called? It was like on the line of Florida and Alabama.
Oh,
Hangout Fest.
Yeah, that one.
Yes.
I've heard of it.
So it's like in the beating sun, like people die, like, because, you know, they're doing drugs or whatever, and then they're in the hot beating sun. And so I was completely sober. I think I was like 18, and we were under a tent, so we weren't even in the sun. And we were surrounded by, like, you know, classmates that I grew up with, people I grew up with, and we were almost at the front of the gate. We were watching this DJ set under a tent. It was a side stage. And I was completely fine, just talking to everyone. And then all of a sudden I started feeling this feeling of like, okay. And then I was just like, dude, you're fine. I'm telling myself you're fine. And then literally tunnel vision, like a movie, complete tunnel vision. I watched my vision go black, and then it just went away. And Sophia, she just looked at me, and she just intuitively knew, like she said, I just went white. She's like, I have to get her out of here. And so I couldn't see anything. I could only hear. And so she said that when she was like pulling me out, normally people would be like mad, but they were just like, oh shit, like get her out of here. Cause I couldn't tell what was up or down or side, or I couldn't tell what was what. I was just basically like a body that was just had no senses except hearing. And so she's just pulling me out. And as soon as I get out, I sit down, and then like I could feel myself sitting, and then my vision starts coming back, and then I was fine. Wow. So it was crazy. Wow. So that was my first experience. And I think from then on,
it was probably so scary.
Oh, it was terrible. I didn't know what was happening to me. I thought I was dying. Like I didn't know what was happening. Heart attack, nothing. And so, since then, and then, you know, being on the internet and everything, and then feeling like kind of more isolated and like felt like more eyes were on me and not knowing how to deal with that, my anxiety just got like super bad. Just any type of crowd. And then like another big one was after Halloween that one year, and we were at that party, and I like lost it. Mm-hmm. But since then, I don't feel like that at all now.
And tell people about when you were like in the car and like the dark thoughts you would have like constantly.
Oh yeah.
That's a form of anxiety, right?
Yeah, it is a form of anxiety. And I think it also comes from childhood trauma. It's called catastrophic thoughts. Catastrophe.
Yeah,
something like that. But basically where you if you grew up in a, you know, toxic environment or a fight or flight mode, you automatically are just preparing for the worst. Mm-hmm. And so it was really hard for me at one point to even leave my house. Like I did, because I have to go to Louisiana to see my family. I have to move around, mm-hmm. but I would just force myself to do it, and just in my mind, just try to, you know, be like, oh, well, this is just how I feel. But I would just envision the darkest things. Catastrophic thinking, yes. And really the way that I healed that was, I think, a mixture of different things. I think for everybody it's different, and I think it can be really hard when you're in that desperation of just like, number one, people don't understand what you're feeling, mm-hmm. and number two, you don't really Maybe some people don't even know why it's happening or like, what do I do to stop it? But I think it was just I really, really committed to taking care of myself and to taking care of my mental and physical health. I really think breath work was a huge, huge component in my healing. But also just training your brain. I was talking to my brain doctor, Dr. Amen, about that. And he called it like, you have to kill the ants, which are automatic negative thoughts. And so kind of like a habit, if you are used to think about all the thoughts you're having in a day, I forgot how many, but we have like
Something
more
insane.
than you would, an insane amount of thoughts a day.
Yeah.
And a lot of those thoughts are repetitive thoughts that we think every day. It's a pattern that we think the same things every day. We talk to ourselves the same way. So a lot of it is just kind of when those thoughts would come up, I made an active effort to push it out with something positive. So those thoughts would come up and then
Give
I
an
would just be
example of
like,
one of the thoughts, like a dark thought you would have.
like if I'm in the car, I would envision
Very dark shit.
scary stuff, really scary stuff. And
Yeah,
so
like to the point where you like didn't feel comfortable when someone else was driving, right?
yeah, it made me feel really uncomfortable. Not because I didn't trust that person, but everybody
'cause
knows
you're-
that feeling. Like,
Yeah, your head goes to worst case scenario. And I still have those thoughts now. I'm like, even when I am driving, like sometimes I'll picture like someone, like I'm parked at the stoplight.
Yeah, I don't even wanna
and
say
something
it. I'm
dark
like,
happens. And like or like I'm crossing the lights, like an intersection, like, and I'll think of something crazy happening. Like, I don't know, just a lot of dark thoughts. Yeah.
I think the key to it is just pushing out, or as Dr. Amen says, killing those ants, little by little until eventually, like it takes, what was it, like 90 days to create a habit or break a habit. It eventually it just kind of went away. And it's not to say that maybe sometimes they don't kind of creep in, but another thing he told me was kind of like, think about all the things that your brain thinks and ask yourself, okay, do I know that? Is this true? No. Do I know this to 100% be true, the truth? No.
Yeah.
And then I tell myself, okay, it's just my brain doing that thing and I need to just stop. And I think just over time, replacing it with true positivity, and when I think it, actively making an effort to shut it out and be like, I'm not doing this. Think about something else. That's not real. Boom, and over time it really got better. And then taking care of myself, meditating helped me a lot. Giving myself a lot of self-love and healing your nervous system will help that a lot. Anything to down-regulate your nervous system. And obviously cortisol, which I feel like people are, with TikTok and everything, people are really learning about these terms or these words. And I think like lowering your cortisol goes hand in hand with all of these things, and I think is really important. So I think if you prioritize you and your mental health and you really are genuinely committed to it, you're going to get better. So it's like if you're in the heat of like, okay, I'm having constant panic attacks, things like drinking alcohol, things like smoking, things that are bad for your body, if you continue to do those things, you're going to continue to feel the same way you're feeling.
So true.
So maybe it's time to just kind of take a beat, take a break, prioritize yourself, get your body moving, get those endorphins and like your blood flowing and pushing out new blood and, old toxins out of your brain. Things will get better. I think it's just committing to it.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things like for me that I got to is like I'm at the point now, and I used to drink like, I could drink like 3 coffees a day. I used to get cold brew, everything. I loved coffee, and like I just drink a lot of caffeine. But now it's like you could not pay me to drink. Like, I know this sounds crazy, but like if someone told me to drink a Celsius, because I heard Celsius like is really intense and gives
Once I heard that it has something in it bad,
die. I couldn't think of how much money I would accept to drink a can of Celsius. Like I would say no to most money because it gives me that much paranoia and fear, because I had to cut out all caffeine to just not get
Right.
I mean, I can drink a
You
matcha.
can do matcha now.
I can drink matcha, but like if I ever get a coffee, it's always decaf. Like I can't drink anything with like a very large amount of caffeine, because then it gives me panic and I start to be like just uncomfortable in my own skin. And that used to not happen to me until I started getting panic attacks. And what was interesting for me is like the switching to a positive thought literally did not work for me. So it's cool that it did for you, but for me, it didn't. I don't know what was the turn for me. Actually, for me, I think it was the cutting out gluten, because that was the only thing I did different. And then I stopped having panic attacks. But when I was eating gluten, prior, you saw me, I got to a really dark place. I was like, I feel so uncomfortable in my own skin. I felt like I was always in fear. Like, I remember we went to Miami Art Basel, and I like was scared to fly back on a flight by myself. I was like having so much panic about going on a plane alone. And I was like, oh my God. And then of course the universe made the flight in like the middle of the night when no one's awake. And then I'm like going there, and I'm in an unfamiliar like city, and I don't know where things are. And like, I know that sounds probably childish to people, but that scared me. Like, I have to get in a car with someone random and I don't know them, and then I have to go somewhere I've never been before and figure out how to go around the airport and figure out if I go the right place, and it's freaking 3 a.m. in the morning and I might get lost. And then so I was giving myself so much panic about it, and I'm like, you need to go. It was my only way to get home. So I went, and it was like 3 a.m. and I'm like, and I just read this book. It was like, feel the fear and do it anyways. So I woke up, felt fear. My alarm went off. I could barely sleep because I knew I had to get up at like 3 a.m. And I'm like on the edge of my seat waiting for my alarm to go off, and it rang. I'm like, oh God, I have to go. And then I'm like packing my stuff, and I'm like scared. I'm like, feel the fear and do it anyways. And I'm like going, and I feel like I was like an empty soul, like walking myself, even though I was scared, like going down to the lobby, getting in the car. And then I'm like, it's dark outside, and I'm like with this random guy in the car, and like sitting there, and then just like being scared. I'm like, oh no, you're gonna find your way. You're gonna ask someone. If you don't know something, you're just gonna ask someone where to go. Because I was like having these crazy thoughts. And then I get there, and of course I get there, and I'm like in the line to like check in, and then I'm like, oh, I forgot my ID. Of course I forgot my ID. And I'm calling Jackie, one of our friends, and I called her, and poor Jackie, I asked them, because this is what I do sometimes if I have panic, I make people keep their phones on. Like, don't turn it on, do not disturb, keep your phone on ring in case I need you, but I won't call you unless I need you. So I call her, because she was in Miami too, but she wasn't leaving until a few days later. So I call her, poor girl. I wake her up at like 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, I forgot my ID. I think I left it in Natasha's wallet, because I needed her to hold something for me one of the nights we went out, because I didn't want to bring my purse. And then she's like, hello? And I'm like, can you look in her wallet? I'm at the airport right now. And she's like, okay. She's like looking. I'm like, what do I do? Do I leave the airport now? Do I get back in an Uber? And she's like, calm down. Let me look. And she's like looking. And she's like, I don't see it in her purse. I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm like looking. I'm like, oh, I have it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Jackie. Go back to bed. So I'm like freaking myself out for no reason. She goes back to sleep, get on the plane. And then I sit there, and I'm like, okay, I easily found like my gate. I sat down. They said like, we're going to LA. I'm like, okay, I get up and I sit on the plane. And then I had dark thoughts on the plane. Like, okay, I think that's my scariest part of flying alone. Like, if shit were to go down, I would die. Like, I would want to die.
What do you mean?
I'm so scared. If shit was going to go down on the plane, if something was happening, I would be the scariest person on the plane beyond any child.
You would step up under pressure. You would be fine. You would fight. You would fight.
I don't think I could even go to grab the thing and put it on me.
You would. Oh, yes, you would. You would be like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do in this moment. I know your ass.
And so the thought of like not having someone with me to look at it and be like, freak out with me, because I'm going to do it to some random person. Anyway, so yeah, I deal with panic and anxiety for sure, but I've gotten better. But I still have it a lot in scenarios. But you saw me, and I was at the point where it was debilitating.
Yeah. I think also everybody's different. And I've told you this before about what I noticed about like, there's OCD, and then there's like OCD personality and OCD ways of thinking. And I think that's also another thing with you, is that you're very OCD in the way that you think and the way you organize your thoughts. And so I think like that might be why with me, I can kind of like actively try to change something, and maybe I get OCD with the way I think too, but I have the ability maybe to change it more, whereas for you that method or like that might be a little harder for you, because it's harder for you to get out of that loop. So other ways, I think it's like everybody has their own way, and you don't know what works for you until you just have to be committed until you figure out what it is that works for you. Kind of like riding a bike. It's like you don't know how to ride a bike until you feel that feeling and you get that groove, and then you're like, oh, okay. Like this is how you ride the bike.
I think what screwed with me the most, and it was such a dark time, but I feel like bad for anyone that deals with this. It's like I went so deep into spirituality before I ever had panic attacks or anxiety, or even thought that was anything I would ever have. And I would hear people that had it, and I was like, I didn't even know if I really like, and it sounds bad, but I didn't even know if I really believed in it, because I think before you have it, it's hard to believe that there's such thing. People are kind of like, oh, you're fine. Like, just change your thought. And it sounds like so easy, but until you experience it, you're like, I wouldn't put that on anyone, the feeling of it.
No.
Like, it's just the worst. So when I went so deep into spirituality and I started being like, oh, okay, we are what we think, and what we think we manifest, and it becomes reality, and our thoughts are so powerful. And I started saying that I could manifest things that I was thinking. And I was getting good at manifesting. So then that paired with, now I have anxiety and I'm having super dark thoughts, and then being afraid of manifesting those thoughts, that fucked with me even more, because then I was like, oh my God, I'm thinking this, and then now I'm thinking it, but now it can happen. So then when I'm trying to get myself out of it, and it keeps staring back out and coming back out and be like, hey, I'm still here. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to look at you anymore. And then the more I didn't want to look at it because I didn't want to manifest it, the more it was coming. But it's interesting because you're like, she's like a psychologist, and like, not really, like, but you could have been a psychologist. She always like can see things in people. And then I went to a therapist, and she even said to me, she wants me to go to a psychiatrist to really get diagnosed with OCD, because I definitely have it. I don't even need to get diagnosed. I know I have OCD. I don't know how crazy it is, but I notice it with like things like if I put food out and I'm like eating, and then like I have to clean it up to like be comfortable to like sit there and relax, like those little things, or like I need things in a certain way to feel like comfortable.
Yeah, and I think every person, well, maybe not every person, but some people have their own form of OCD. But I think it's like there's other people where it kind of presents more obvious. And I think with you, it's like sometimes you have, I think really what it comes down to is people deciding whether their OCD kind of comes in the way of their life and is kind of blocking certain things or bothering them. And I think like with you, it would be beneficial maybe just to look into it, just to give because I think your OCD sometimes brings you anxiety. Whereas like if it's just a person, like mine is kind of like little dumb things that aren't like that crazy. Like if I lock my door and put the thing on it and put the bar under it and I know it's locked, I know I did it. But if I lay in bed and I think about it, I have to get back up just to go look at it. So things like that. It's like that's not really harming your life. Like it's like a little things you do, little quirks you do. Like when I get a cup out of the cabinet, I have to wash it out before I have to. Like I can do it with not doing it, but I just feel like I'm drinking the remnants of like soap. I just had it in my head. So those don't really bother my life. Whereas like I feel like sometimes yours within your personality can hold you back and affect how you really are, which is like a positive, just like carefree person. So I think like when that started coming into your life, you were more like, okay, this is like agitating me, but I can't like get past my own thoughts.
I think that was the biggest thing I learned in this last year, is that, and it's not discussed enough, but OCD can trigger anxiety. And a lot of people, and when I started looking into it more, it was like OCD is labeled as like the cleaning mental illness. It's like, oh, we're just clean. And it's like they kind of make it seem like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, you're just really clean, you know. And they're like, no, OCD is so much more than that. It's the way you think, and it's the way you process thoughts, and it's the way you obsess over thoughts, and it's like a lot more. And so that shined a lot of light on like, oh wow, that makes sense why things can keep repeating, and then it's hard to get away from it. I've gotten better at it because I've been going to therapy, but I think that would be something to shine a light on a lot of people. If you feel like you have any sort of OCD and then you have anxiety, that is very much connected. And you actually were the first person to point it out to me, and then I talked to her about it, and she's like, yeah. So that's very interesting.
I don't know why, but I've always had the ability. I think because when I was younger, I spent so much of my time looking within myself and analyzing so many things and wanting to deeply understand maybe some of the things that were being done to me or people that were, you know, doing certain things to me. I wanted to understand, okay, we're humans. I do believe humans are innately good. And I think like, okay, what's going on that's causing this? And so it just years, I guess, of just like, I don't know, learning how to read people, maybe out of my own self-protection or whatever. I think it's just, I sometimes can tell or like see something, and especially it's like I know you so well. So I started like seeing how your brain works, and I'm like, you don't only have OCD like that. Like I can your thoughts, you get wrapped in this thought. And I think I also want to tell you that I think she is an incredible, very powerful manifester, and that is a fact. I mean, it just is. But I think also where you get anxiety with like those thoughts, how you usually do, where it's like you don't want to. I'm similar to you in that way. I don't want to hear negative things, really. I don't really want to watch, like, I'm not going to go home and watch something super dark. I'm not going to go watch a murder movie about somebody coming and like cutting people's. I'm not going to do that. It's just not my fun pastime. I'm okay. I'm good. I don't even want to invite that energy. I'm like that too. But I think sometimes when things come up in life that are sad or like are negative, I just don't take on the role. And I think that this is what you could, in your own way, try to think is like, okay, I not only have the power to manifest, but I also have the power to protect my own mind and control what I'm taking on or not. And so that's kind of just how I feel about it. I avoid really anything negative or scary, but if something comes up in life where I have to hear about something or discuss something with someone, I kind of just try to be like, you know what? I don't take this on. And I just kind of feel, I put my shield on
like that.
in a sense.
I used to be like that. I was completely that way. It was, and then we'll tell this on a whole different episode, but I had a traumatic experience that completely changed.
Oh, so you feel like that is what really stopped it.
That was when I started having super high empathy, and my empathy went up the roof, and now I'm like an empath. And now it's uncontrollable how much I can feel other people. But like I was at a restaurant the other day, and I literally was sitting there, and there was like this old woman sitting, and like she just reminded me of like, we get older, and I'm like sitting with a whole table.
Yeah, see, old people get
and she's like she trying hard to like cut her food. I start bawling. And then people are like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I can't, I'm just like.
But that's such a good way to be.
Yeah.
Like being like that is such a good thing. That really is a superpower, because like that's kind of just the way life is, so much like that. As corny as it is, I probably told you this, one of my favorite quotes that I heard, like I was in high school, so over 10 years ago. And it's, life is like licking honey off a thorn.
Wow.
Because it's like, it's so sweet, but it also hurts. And that's just the beauty of life. That's the beauty of being alive. And I think like for someone that feels so deeply, it's hard, you know, but it's just about like, you just keep on trucking, and you take the good with the sad, and you just kind of try to remind yourself that this is life, and this is what being alive feels like. And what a blessing to be here, to send good energy to that older woman, and just that someone is watching her and caring about her so deeply.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like what a blessing it is that she doesn't even know that someone like you is so touched by her, and that you're sending her that good energy, and you're caring about her so much. So I think it's like, it's so sad, but it's very bittersweet in a way.
Yeah.
So I love that about you. I really do. And I think
that way too.
we both are. I think that's
why
why
we
we're
get
so
along.
close. But I think like you're such a strong person that I know that you're going to learn to balance it.
Yeah,
And
I
learn
think
how to shield yourself.
What's weird is I went through this traumatic moment, and then all these things started coming up, and I know it happened for a reason, and I'm going through a new evolution and evolving and becoming stronger. But it's like, okay, then the panic attacks came up. Then I started realizing that I had OCD that was affecting my life. Then I realized I have really high empathy, and I'm an empath, and I take on people's emotions. So imagine that like in a cocktail. It's like, okay, I have anxiety, so I get anxiety. If something negative comes into my life, I can feel it on a whole nother level. So if something negative is happening, I take it on like, I can feel it like exactly how that would feel. And then I'm worried about manifesting it, but I can feel it so heavily, and then I can't get it out of my head. So it's like this OCD thought. And then it's just like all that mixed in a cocktail is just like too many things and that are a lot.
And it was also stressing you out too, because I think that anxiety was causing whenever you had the Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you've ever talked about that.
No.
But I don't know if that's private to you.
That's fine.
But yeah, she had like a flare up, and it was feeling all these feelings, but then you healed it. Because it's like, and that's so powerful, because I think like autoimmune, it's just a sign that your body was so just fed up with all this anxiety and freaking out that it kind of manifested in that way. And then you started really prioritizing your health. You completely stopped drinking alcohol, which you never really drank much before, but like you completely cut it off. You cut off anything else you could possibly trigger any sort of anxiety. Super clean, super healthy, gluten-free, and it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's like
wild.
That's so amazing that like just another way to show how if you really commit to changing something, you can change it. Just like if you commit to really wanting something or doing something, you can change it. And I think as far as your mental health and physical health, if you really just commit to changing your lifestyle and being willing to try everything and not giving up and not taking no for an answer, you will figure it out.
I want to do a whole episode with you on health because you're so like good at health stuff. I was just thinking that as we were talking.
It's so fun.
Yeah. And I was just going to say one of the things, and this would be a whole nother episode, but like the universe will put things in your life to stop you and make you either like show up and become better or like keep going down that negative spiral. So like sometimes like health related conditions, like me finding out about my thyroid imbalance and then being labeled that I have a disease, and that was a very dark thought, triggered me to like completely up and change my life and start to not do these things and take care of my health. And I remember when you were always like so healthy, I was like, there's no way I could be gluten-free. Like I would die. And then now I did it. So it's just wild. But yeah, it's like you could get these things, and this could be like the universe getting you to like stop and basically like trying to get you to realize like take care of yourself. You're not taking care of yourself. Prioritize yourself. Start doing self-love. Start doing things that, you know, really make you feel good, or like putting you first. And like self-love is being like, you know what, I'm not going to drink alcohol tonight because I love myself and I don't want to hurt my body. Or like tonight I'm not going to, you know, eat that thing or do that thing because I love me. And it's like those little rewards of like cutting those things out, or meditating, or taking time to actually go to breath work, because breath work, like you said, has changed so much. It's like that's all self-love.
Right.
And we
that's
forget
its own
to
medicine,
do that. Yeah.
in a sense of just even giving yourself that attention that, you know, maybe you don't, if you were growing up and you weren't. And that's the thing, is that so much of people, they don't give that attention to themselves because maybe they didn't get that growing up. Maybe they didn't have a parent that took them to every doctor's appointment and helped them and was there holding their hand through everything. And it's kind of crazy, but I was just talking about this the other day about how bittersweet it is kind of growing up or hitting a certain point. And I feel like I felt that way at around like 25. And maybe it has something to do with your prefrontal cortex, like developing or whatever they say. But kind of like you arrive to a moment in life where you really do have to let go of the child and decide that, okay, maybe I didn't have that parent, maybe I didn't have that support system that I really wanted and craved. I need to parent myself. I need to take care of me now, you know? And I think like that feeling is so like, it's like you're saying goodbye to a part of yourself, to a part of your life, and moving on. And I think like that feeling is where really I felt a change in myself. And knowing that one day I want to have a family, and one day I want to have children, and I want to be the best version of myself and be a person that they see that loves themselves and takes care of themselves. So they do the same thing. You know, I think it's just like, life is just so crazy.
Yeah.
It's so wild. And I think at the end of the day, with your health and your mental health, it's easy to be like, oh, that's not convenient. Like, I'm not going to not drink alcohol, or I'm not going to be gluten-free. That's inconvenient. It's just like, try to make the decision for your health. Everybody, you know, you can bring a horse to the water. You can't make it drink.
Yes.
You have to be ready to do it, and you have to want to do it. But all I pray for people is that, you know, it doesn't take something, you know, if they're in a position where they really need to do something, it doesn't take something serious happening for you to change it. You know, love yourself now and make that change now, because it's like you thought, oh, gluten-free is going to be so hard. Now it's like you don't even think about it. You're so used to it. You don't even miss it anymore. It's like, it's fine. It's really fine.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah. It's shocking.
But hey, maybe the food is about to change. So hopefully we get some more of the laws that they have in Europe, where they cut out a lot of like toxins and, you know, different chemicals, dyes, and the way that our wheat is made, hopefully. Because when I am in Italy, I do have pizza there, and I have, you know, I don't go like crazy.
Yes.
But It's fine. It doesn't really
And
affect
it's
me.
wild because I've met, like, we've talked to waitresses in like Paris that, like, we talked to a waitress one time we were in Paris, and there was a girl that was there, and she's like, yeah, I'm from like LA, and she's like, and I moved to Paris like 3 years ago, and she's like, and I couldn't eat gluten there, and
Or
now
dairy.
in dairy, and she's like, and now I drink dairy all the time, like real cow's milk, and she eats gluten. She's like, it's just so obvious how much better the food is in Italy and like, or in Paris and Italy, and we were like, it's
Europe.
wild.
Yeah, it's because they it's less processed. That's what's really killing us, is that it's the processing of food. It's like, if you really think about it, it's kind of obvious why it's bad for us and why our obesity is at an all-time high. It's because we're living, breathing humans. We need to eat food mostly that is coming from the earth, like raw foods. And it's like we're eating these like manufactured, chemical filled, weird things.
Like,
Like,
and wondering why we have depression or anxiety, and
Right.
these things, a lot of it comes back to the food you're eating.
I notice so much when I'm not on my shit with how I usually eat, because I'm like a freak about
She's very
eating
healthy.
healthy.
We'll have a whole episode on that.
But I have like bouts of like kind of slacking where,
Yes, but that's
remember a couple of years ago I was like committed, like I
Yes.
was like locked in, and I felt the best I've ever felt. My skin looked the best it's ever been, everything. I've kind of had like bouts of like letting it kind of dip, and now I'm going back into it, and it feels so good. It really does. You feel so much better. Even like for ladies and stuff, sorry guys, but if a guy's watching, but like my periods are like
Yes.
so much better when I eat how I'm supposed to eat, and I get all the nutrients that I'm supposed to get. It's like my period's not even as bad. It's like my body's like, thank you, you're giving me what I need. But it's like, if you treat it like shit and you don't give it what it needs, it's gonna be angry.
I think that was the craziest thing, is like the fact that I was eating gluten my entire life, and then the moment I cut it out, my anxiety started lessening, and then I wasn't having any panic attacks, and then I literally just started unfolding more and more, and now I haven't had it I can't even remember the last time I had a panic attack
Well, because when you, like, let's say there's a person that never had gluten in their whole life. If they eat it a little bit, it might not affect them, but it's because we ate it our whole life, so it did long-term damage. Like, it took a long time, but it did some serious damage. And so what it does is it rips holes in your intestines, and it causes leaky gut. Which
by
didn't
the way,
I tell
so
you?
many people have
yeah,
leaky gut.
so many
So
people
common.
do. And what that causes is, like, I remember when I got told I had leaky gut, like at like 23 or 24, I was like, that sounds like something that like someone that is like 85 has. But when you get leaky gut, because something with don't quote me, I'm not a scientist, but it's like something with the proteins, or like the particles, I don't know, in the wheat that's so genetically modified in America, our bodies don't know how to react to it, and it slowly kind of tears at our intestines, and then it rips open little holes. So then think about it. If you're eating food and your waste that your body is like, this is bad, we're going to have this exit, it's leaking out of those holes. And so then the toxic waste that your body's trying to expel is seeping into your body and into your bloodstream. So it's like, and then when you're eating healthy food, it's having a hard time absorbing those really good nutrients
Yes,
to
now
feed
you
your
have leaky
brain and to
gut.
feed your body. So it's like it's like malnutrition, malabsorption and malnutrition, really. And so that's what people don't really understand. And
Yeah,
a
people
big
don't talk enough about how much that affects your mood, anxiety, and depression, and all these things. They don't talk about it much.
Yeah, and people know more now, but they from TikTok and stuff, if you're on that side of TikTok, but about how so much of your serotonin is made in the gut, and your depression can be from poor gut imbalance. Not having probiotics, eating too much shit, eating too much sugar, giving it all this processed stuff, having buildup. I mean, so much. And in the average American, it's not their fault. That might be just what's on the shelves, or what they're trying to feed their family. They're just trying to get food in their kids' bellies, because they're
Yes.
working hard, and they're like just trying to, they might not have the knowledge of it. So it's like unfortunate, because so many people, it's really not fair, because like now there's starting to be more information about it, and hopefully in America we make that change.
Yes.
But yeah, it really is crazy, the damage that is done, that is not even, it kind of just goes over people's heads, and then they get to a point and they're like, what the heck? I feel like shit.
Yes. I was going to say anyone that's like considering to be like in a place where you're trying to think like, how do I get rid of anxiety, or I've been dealing with this for so long. I think considering like what you're eating is a huge portion. And then, like you said, different things like breath work and meditation. And if you don't have anxiety, like changing the thought to a positive, or if you don't have OCD, changing the thought to a positive and consistently working on that. But I was going to say, when you start with like not eating gluten, it feels like a big like move to make, but I think the first way to look at it is, number one, you have to download this app, Habits app. Or is it called Habits? It's called Days Sense. And people use it for like alcohol, like how long have I not drank alcohol? But there's those apps that helped me the most, because I started it. I'm like, I'm only going to do it for today.
It's OCD.
Yes.
Every day you get a little.
Yeah. And it's like, if I felt like I would do this for the rest of my life, there's no way I could start. But if I was like, I'm just doing it for today. So I do it today, and I start my little checker, and it counts how many days I do it automatically. And so it's like one day, and then the next day I'm like, oh, I did all today. And then I'm like, oh, wow, I'm on day 2. And then I'm like, oh, I might as well go to day 3.
Right.
And then I might as well go to day 4. Oh, wow, now it's been a week. Oh, that's so cool. I haven't eaten gluten for a whole week. Okay. And then you go to the next week. And then now, like, it's literally been like over a year and a half. And I'm like, whoa, it like just gives you that little reward. And there's so much like gluten-free stuff now that you can get, like breads, you can make your own bread. And then some restaurants are now starting to have like gluten-free pastas, so that you don't feel like you're like totally like dying because you can't have
It's
these
really
things.
not that bad. And then you also notice how much better you feel without filling your head, because filling your body. But if you think about it, it's just filler. It's filler food. So in Italy, I'm always like telling my friends there and everything, because they eat so much starch, like a lot of it, pasta, pizza. They eat like a little, and not every person, obviously. I mean, the food there is amazing. I absolutely am obsessed with Italy, but a lot of like filler foods where it's like, that's going to leave you feeling not only hungry later, but it's also just filling your body with just no nutrients. It's like if you're eating bread, you're eating a croissant, you're eating pizza, then you have pasta for dinner. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Your body's just like,
I was reading something the other day. They're like, the most important foods are protein and fats. Like those are the top most important. Like you actually don't really need that much like carbs and
Healthy
things like
fats.
that. Yeah, like so like avocado and olive oil and like these types of fats. And
that's
like,
one thing that they do in Italy, is have a lot of olive oil, and there's so many healthy things that they do there as well. But I think it's something like the average American has 2 tablespoons of olive oil a week, whereas like the average Italian has 4 tablespoons of olive oil a day, something like that. And olive oil in its natural form is so, if it's a good olive oil, it's so good for you. Oh my gosh, it has it's really high in polyphenols, which polyphenols they fight disease, they fight cancer, they're amazing for your body. And it has good omegas too, if I'm remembering correctly, but it's just extremely good for your body. But also, you should really never heat olive oil.
yeah, that's hard.
So, and I think a lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that until, a couple years ago, because when you heat it, not only does it burn, it has a high smoke point, which I'm sure people that use it can tell. But anything that when you burn it, you're changing it's oxidizing. And so you're creating char and burnt, which is all oxidative stress, which is a carcinogen. So it's just, you should never really
What do you use
heat
to cook? Now
olive
we're going
oil.
down a health episode. What do you use?
Olive oil, avocado oil, because it
Okay.
has a really high smoke point.
Okay.
And then it's always good to use natural butter, like ghee or something
okay.
like that.
Yeah.
Also beef tallow is
Okay.
good. You don't want to overuse that, but like it's very clean. It's what they used to use. It's what our body is like built to
Yeah.
to have. It's a natural oil. It's natural fats, and it's good for you. But I mainly use avocado oil because it's a really high smoke point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Obviously, we can go down a rabbit hole. Me and Abby literally sit on the couch and have these conversations for like 14 hours straight.
Yeah. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna watch a movie. Never
Don't
start.
watch a movie the whole time, go down these rabbit holes, but it's such cool information. And I think it's so cool how you've overcome anxiety. And I think that If anyone has anything they want to discuss, if you comment in the comments, we read all your comments. And thank you so much for coming on. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Abby Rao, ABBYRAO.
Love you.
I love you.
Bye.
So much.